powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to another edition of Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Please continue to help the station grow. Minnesota Vikings are 7-2. For the past couple days, we've heard about J.J. McCarthy's injection, which I'm not necessarily worried about. I was more worried about the injury in itself than I am about the injection, because I know that's a lot of maintenance, and that's what needs to be done to keep that inflammation down in that knee so that knee can heal the proper way. We got a game. We got a game on Sunday. Tennessee Titans versus the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings, the chance to go 8-2. Will have us sitting pretty in the NFC, and I think that's something that is going to happen on Sunday. I think the Minnesota Vikings, my prediction is they're probably going to play one of their best games of the season. I think last week's game with the Jacksonville Jaguars didn't sit well with my boy, KOC. KOC was pretty upset. Defense carried away. I think the defense is going to continue to play well. I think they're going to give Will Levis fits, although I will say this about Will Levis. Even though he's a turnover machine, and I don't think he's ready for prime time, especially with B-Flow's defense. I think when the pocket is set up really well, the kid throws a really, really good ball. And there are times I can see why he was so highly touted coming out of college. He's got a rifle for an arm. He's a big, strong quarterback. And when his pocket is clean, he can put that thing there. The problem with playing in the NFL is your pocket is not going to stay clean all the time. So you got to be a good improviser. And right now, that's what he's struggling with. And I think B-Flow, his record against young quarterbacks is stellar. And I think he's going to give Will Levis a lot of looks that he probably hasn't seen before. And if he can decipher those looks, which I don't think he will be able to do consistently, although he's a smart kid, smart quarterback, again, I just don't think he's ready for prime time. And I think the Minnesota Vikings defense is going to have a lot of success against that offensive line and Will Levis. Van Ginkel and Grenard blitzing from the outside. A lot of Minnesota Viking players that are in that front seven are so versatile that B-Flow can definitely move some of those guys around. So I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to give the Tennessee Titans fits. The question about the Minnesota Vikings is, what are we going to look like on offense? See, I think this has got to be a comeback game for the Minnesota Vikings offense. They haven't been looking, they've been up and down, man, since the second half of the Green Bay game. And I hate to go all the way back there, but it was like in that second half, that started pretty much everything for the Minnesota Vikings in terms of their offense being hit or miss. Like, they got to get this thing going. They got too many weapons. And Sam Darnold has to stop turning the ball over. My fear is that if Sam Darnold continues to play like this, the Minnesota Vikings are going to have to go more run heavy to protect his decision making than we normally would. And that's going to put more on Aaron Jones' shoulders, who's dealing with cracked ribs. I know we got Cam Akers back there. But I think our offense isn't our offense if we have to rely on the run because we can't trust Sam Darnold's decision making. And this is going to show the worth of KOC. Don't you think so, UP Nation? Like, this is going to have to show the worth of KOC, because I know he wasn't happy last week. I don't know if you saw the locker room post game. KOC does a great job of that, where he hands out game balls. I think he put on a great front. He gave every player on the defensive side of the ball a game ball. Then he went to the special teams, the long snapper, the holder, the field goal kicker. Romo gave them game balls. And now his focus this week, you would think, looking at what has transpired over the past few games, his focus has been on the offensive side of the ball. And it's going to be interesting to see what that offense looks like after a week with an angry KOC. See, people forget KOC is the offensive genius. He is the quarterback whisperer. So in these moments, this is where KOC will show his value and the type of coach that he is for the Minnesota Vikings. You can't show up on Sunday with the same type of offense with all the weapons that you have. TJ Hawkinson, Addison, Jefferson, Oliver now, Aaron Jones, Powell. I mean, come on, man. You've got a lot of toys to play with. Now, go in your lab and be the mastermind. And I believe that the Minnesota Vikings are probably going to play their best game on Sunday. I expect the defense to be on point, and I expect the offense to have worked out all the kinks that they needed to work out this past week. Sam Darnold's got to take care of the ball. We can't have a lot of self-inflicted, as KOC calls it. Like, the Minnesota Vikings have got to get it together, and I think they are going to get it together this Sunday. One thing that worries me, man, I mentioned it in a couple of other podcasts, man. Like, the Minnesota Vikings, they've got to find a way, even if teams are double coveraging and rolling guys over the top. I mean, Justin Jefferson isn't the first stud wide receiver in the league. You know, you've had guys like Jerry Rice and Randy Moss and Chris Carter. You can Megatron. You can name all the wide receivers you want, and they haven't just started on defense double covering these guys. Like, you gotta find a way. You've got to find a way to get these guys the ball. And Justin Jefferson, you got to find a way, especially in the red zone, to make usage of his talent. And I've said before, as long as the Minnesota Vikings are winning football games, man, I think Justin Jefferson, for the most part, is going to be quiet about things. But if they start dropping some games, I mean, you've heard it here and there. Oh, I'm getting tired of these 80, 90-yard games. That's about as vocal as Justin Jefferson is going to get, because they're winning games. I'm tired of all these 80, 90-yard games. Oh, I got a new gritty for y'all. I didn't get in the end zone last week, but I'm going to get in the end zone this week. I'm going to show you my new gritty. He hasn't been able to do that in the last couple of weeks. Man, that eats at players. Remember when Stephon Diggs was all about the team? And then all of a sudden, when the Vikings start losing and he wasn't getting the ball that much, what happened with that? Think about Adam Thielen, hometown kid, nice guy, team player. That's why so many people want him back in purple. But it got to the point where he was like, well, y'all going to have to pay me. You know, I'm not the third wide receiver on this team. This is what I've done over the years. This is the amount of money I get. Minnesota Vikings didn't want to give him that money, so he ended up with the Carolina Panthers. Don't get JJ's class. Don't get it twisted. JJ is all about team. But JJ has said on multiple occasions he wants to be the best. I want to break records. I want to be the best there ever was, the best there is, the best that there will be, to quote a phrase from the Hitman in WWE. The best there was, the best there is, the best there ever will be. That's what Justin Jefferson wants to be. And he's not going to settle for an offense or quarterback that's not going to get him the ball or that can't get him the ball. That's going to grow old really quick. And it's going to go faster if the Minnesota Vikings start dropping games. But it ain't going to happen Sunday. I don't see the Minnesota Vikings dropping this game on Sunday. I know that the NFL has a lot of parity, and anybody can get anybody on any given week. But I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to handle their business. And the Minnesota Vikings are going to go 8-2. The Minnesota Vikings are 7-2 right now. They reached their win total, the win total that I projected them to have. I thought that they would be 7-10 at the end of the year when me and Patrick made our picks. I believe Patrick Buchanan was 10-7. I was 7-10, so we've already reached that 7 mark, which I was wrong because obviously they're going to win more games. So I wasn't accurate. I'm a man. I can admit it. I'm not afraid to come on here, UP Nation, and say I was wrong. Bad host. But they got to continue this thing, and they will continue it on Sunday. People have been asking me, what do I think about Sam Darnold? Am I worried about Sam Darnold? Man, I think Sam Darnold is learning the position over. He really hasn't had a coach like KOC. I mean, he's really cutting his teeth, even though he's been in the league for 6 years. Yeah, he had Shanahan as his coach, but he really didn't play for Shanahan. Got in some backup moments, but didn't have the workload that he has with the Minnesota Vikings and KOC. So there are times where he is going to look bad. He's got to learn. But you can't keep coming back making the same mistakes. Like, he's got to start climbing the stairs, and he's got to look better this Sunday. Can't make the same mistakes. I tell my players all the time, here's how you measure growth. It's all right to make mistakes, but don't make the same mistakes tomorrow in practice that you made today in practice. That's not growth. And Sam Darnold is going to have to do that when he goes on the football field on Sunday. I believe he will do that. I believe when it's all said and done, at the end of the year, Sam Darnold is going to be the best version of himself for being in the Minnesota Vikings organization and having KOC as his coach. I think he's going to be ready to be handed the keys to another team that's out there. It won't be the Minnesota Vikings because we got J.J. McCarthy. But I think Sam Darnold is going to be ready to be a franchise quarterback. I'm not saying he's going to be elite. I'm not saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady-esque. I'm not saying that. But I think when he leaves the Minnesota Vikings organization to go elsewhere, I think he's going to be better for it. I think his experience with the Purple is going to make him the number one free agent in terms of quarterbacks out there. And I think wherever he goes, I think he's going to have a pretty good rear because he's a pretty good year. He's going to have a pretty good career because he's got all the physical tools. He's got the smarts. He just needs to get better instinctually and be able to play on rhythm. And those are his biggest adversaries now as the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Like, he's just got to get better in those areas. UP Nation, what do you think about Sunday's game? Think the Minnesota Vikings going to pull it off? Do we go 8-2 on Sunday? I believe that we do. We'll have our post-game show on Monday. The show, UP Nation, will not be live on Sunday. Me and my basketball squad, we've got a game in Missouri on Sunday. So I will not be able to be on the pod, but I will get back with the UP Nation on Monday to recap the Minnesota Vikings game versus the Tennessee Titans. Is this Sam Darnold's 300-yard game? Does he throw for 300 yards? Will KOC protect him and be a little bit more run-heavy with Aaron Jones? Who's the player of the game for the Minnesota Vikings? Will it be Justin Jefferson? Jordan Addison came to play last couple of games. But we got to get JJ going, man. We got to get Justin Jefferson going. We got to get him in the end zone to hit that new gritty. Minnesota Vikings, Tennessee Titans on Sunday. Make sure you tune in. Please hit that like and subscribe button. This has been the UP Unconventional Playbook. We got to get our guy, Patrick Buchanan, back on. Both of us have been pretty busy, but we'll make sure to make an appearance next week. Just got to pick up the phone and get Patrick Buchanan on there. He's got a lot to say. I've been talking to him about Minnesota Vikings, Minnesota Timberwolves. So he's got a lot to say about some of these issues. We're going to get him back on here. I know you guys are missing Mr. Patrick Buchanan. This has been UP Nation. We will make sure to see ya when we see ya. Latre, take us home, man.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm a man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting